We're continuing our discussion about IP networking, and in this video I wanted to talk about the TCP handshake, or how TCP connections actually get established and then eventually how they break apart. It's essentially when you meet somebody, how you say hello, and then when you're ready to end the conversation, how you say goodbye. Well, TCP works in a three-way handshake. And, well, with three-way handshake, basically there's three things that happen. Me as the client trying to talk to a server, I start off sending them a SYN connection request. SYN or synchronize. Basically, it's my way of saying, hey, Mr. Server, I would like to speak with you. The server then sends back as an acknowledgement, or ACK, and another synchronize saying, okay, I understand, I recognize you, I also want to talk to you. And then my client finally responds back with another acknowledgement saying, great, now we can have a conversation. So this is how TCP establishes its reliable and redundant configuration or communication paths to make sure that they can communicate from client to server and from server back to the client. This is a great interview question. I've actually been asked it several times, and the question is, what are the steps of the TCP three-way handshakes? And well, after hearing that several times, I finally memorized it. It's SYN, SYNAC, ACK, or synchronize, synchronize and acknowledge, and finally acknowledge. So I actually have a demo that I'm going to show here in just a second. I'm listing out the steps here of what I'm going to do because I'm going to start it out and I'm going to run very quickly through it. Basically what I do is I have a Wireshark window open behind this PowerPoint screen. So I'm going to open that up and I'm going to start a capture. I'm going to tell it to start to capture all the traffic on my network, which is quite a bit. So that's why I'm going to be doing this very quickly and going over the steps before I actually start it. Once I've started the wire capture, I'm then going to open up a web browser, browse to a web page, and then close the web browser as quickly as possible and stop the Wireshark capture. At that point, I'll take the data and I will filter it to see just the types of data that we're looking for so that we can then see that three-way handshake all in one step. Okay, so I'm going to start capturing with Wireshark. I'm going to open a web page, close the web page, and then stop Wireshark altogether. Alright, so start the capture. Oops. Continue without saving. Open web page. Close web page. Stop capture. Alright, so there we go. I opened the web page in order to establish a connection. I then closed it. And as we could see, I captured just shy of 1,000 items in my packet here, or in my Wireshark. So obviously, there's more here than we want to look at. So now I'm going to filter it. Let's see. First look for TCP. Looks like actually TCP.port. So I'm going to look for SSL traffic or secure HTTPS traffic. And right there I see it. So then I'm going to filter. Yeah, that looks right. Then I'm going to filter on that IP. And there we go. Now we have a much smaller subset of packets. As we can see, they almost fit on one page. All right, so what we're looking for here is at the very beginning. We'll start with the very first packet, and as we break this down here, we can actually start seeing the various details of the packet. For instance, a frame number, its Ethernet, who my MAC addresses are, what my IP addresses are, and then finally the TCP protocol. So if I open up the TCP protocol, what we're looking for is the flags. And I could see here, well, there is a, there we go. There is a, oh, excuse me, congestion window here, congestion window flag, and echo flag here. We're not too concerned with those at this point. What we're interested in here is the SYN, or the synchronize. Because it's a 1, it means a synchronize was sent from my client, which is at 10.145.144, to the server, which is 172.217.14.195. So that's the very first packet in my filter here. If I then continue on to the next one, which is this guy here, not the redirect, but the next one down, and I look at my flags again, I see, in this case, the server is sending back to me an acknowledgement and a synchronize as well. So I sent it to synchronize, it then sends back an ACK and a synchronize in the same packet. And then finally, my client sends to the server a final acknowledgement. And there we go. That is the 3-way TCP handshake that we see right there. Synchronize, and acknowledgement, and then finally acknowledgement. After that, once that is done, if we look back here at the packet, at the capture, all of this is all just data that's being sent back and forth in the web page. Everything that's being browsed on the website is this data right here. Well, great. So that's how we set up and establish a connection from a client to a server, is with the 3-way handshake. Well, if we have to do something to establish the connection, believe it or not, we also have to do something to say goodbye, a way to break down the connection after we're done. And it's very similar. In the connection handshake, we did a SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK. In a termination, we do a FIN for finalize, acknowledgement, finalize, and then finally acknowledgement. This is oftentimes referred to as a 4-way termination because oftentimes it is broken up into 4 different packets. 1 packet, 2, 3, and then finally 4. Sometimes they actually do streamline these fins and ACKs together at the same time, which we can actually look at. Since our packet capture not only captured the opening of the window, but also the closing of the window, we should see the termination as well. So if we go back to our Wireshark and scroll down to the bottom here, and right here we can see there's a FIN ACK. So FIN is set and acknowledge is set. And so that is from, let's see, source 10. So that's the source is my client. The destination is 172.217. So that's the server out on the internet. The server on the internet then turns around and responds to me again with a FIN and an acknowledgement. And then finally my client sends back an acknowledgement. So even though officially it's supposed to be a 4-way termination, we actually sped it up into 3 because both the FIN and the ACK from the server were sent at the same time. So there you go. 2 really great interview questions that you may run into. What is the 3-way TCP handshake? SYN, SYN-ACK, ACK. What is the 4-way TCP termination? FIN-ACK, FIN-ACK. There you go.